Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special session at SoccerX. My name is Richard Conway, and I'm joined by Jill Ellis, two-time World Cup winning coach, of course, with the US women's national team. We've got a tight 20 minutes. There we go. Round of applause. We've got a tight 20 minutes, so I want to get into it. Good news is Jill and I got the memo when we're both coordinated in our tan jackets and white shirt, which is
We're going riding later.
We got it right, yeah.
We're going riding later.
But no, let's get started. So Jill, I guess for many people, now is the president of San Diego Wave, and we're going to talk about that and that journey.
Yep.
But for many people who've come off the back of winning 2 World Cups, you might be expected, I've cemented my legacy, I'm happy there now, I'm going to work with FIFA, I'm going to work internationally. But you've decided to make this move from the sidelines to the front office with San Diego Wave. Phenomenal success in those first 2 years. But what was the thinking behind why you wanted to go on and take on that new challenge?
I mean, a part of it is just how I'm wired. It's like I love to find a challenge, and I think at my core, I'm a builder. But in truth, I really wasn't sure whether to stay in coaching or I knew I wanted to stay connected to the game I love. So I was, at the time, it was right when COVID hit, and it was just really this thought of, how can I try and make something better? You know, obviously the players that we had in with the U.S. Women's National Team were in the NWSL. I heard a lot about, you know, the resources that they had and the facilities and just the level of infrastructure there. So I knew it really needed to grow. And I met with this gentleman who wanted me initially to consult, Ron Burkle. And I met with him, and he kind of laid out his vision, and I said, you know, I don't want to consult, I want to run the whole damn thing. And it was really this idea of, how could we build something that can give back to the game, can stay connected to it, but you get to a certain point in your life, it's more important about what you're building for those that come after you than what's ahead of you. And I just saw this as a really unique opportunity to personally grow, but also try and make a difference in this sport.
What have been the main challenges in making that move from a head coaching position to being as a president? What's been the main challenges in facing up to that?
Well, I think, you know, whenever you completely shift, I mean, let's be honest, when I would show up at a pitch, there'd be fans, there'd be partnerships, there'd be all these things done that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to. Now it was suddenly learning almost essentially a new language, definitely a new lens through which to look through sports. So I think some of the hardest things is hiring a coach, a GM, that's in my wheelhouse. But hiring, you know, a director of partnerships or a VP of marketing, to truly hire someone, you have to understand a little bit about that landscape. So, you know, I made a lot of calls, tried to educate myself a lot to try and bring in good people. Because at the end of the day, what I sold Ron on was, I didn't go to Wharton, but I know how to hire great people, empower them, and build a culture. And that, for me, is the foundation of whether it's a team, whether it's an organization. If we can have that and solidify that, then everything else from there can grow. So it really was this idea of trying to educate myself in how do we bring in great people and give them the resources. Ultimately, I always say a coach, it's similar, right? You're kind of a caretaker of dreams. Your job is to facilitate and help people's ambitions. It's no different as a leader of an organization. My job is to help give the resources, provide the guidance, and set the direction of where we want to go. But ultimately, it's a people business. Doesn't matter if it's business or it's coaching.
So that sense of building a culture and building it from the ground up,
Yeah.
has that been the main, it sounds like that's been the main focus from it. How difficult has that been in finding the right people for those right positions, and how much of your time has been dedicated to building that cultural mold?
I mean, a lot. And I would say, listen, we had an incredibly short launch pad. It was 5 months from the time we announced our team to we had to have players on the pitch. So we did it at light speed. It wasn't perfect. We certainly made some mistakes. But I think a lot of it, and the humility is asking a lot of questions. It's tapping into experts out there. I mean, I feel like I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of experienced people, so to ask for their expertise and their guidance. Julie Ehrman is here, and we're big rivals, but, you know, at Angel City, you know, Julie and I were a perfect complement to each other. So, you know, just asking a lot of that. But in terms of how hard it was, yeah, I would say, you know, I said this last year, 2022 was harder than winning any World Cup. It was just a, you know, an incredible opportunity, but also an incredible amount of work to try and get, you know, from 0 people to a front office to selling out a 32,000 seat stadium. It required a lot of self-belief, and then just really, like I said, empowering people to do it. But it was challenging. The things that are hard is, again, I want partnerships. I had a goal for partnerships, and I've had to learn that that's a runway, and that takes time, and I'm not patient. So I've learned a lot along the way, but I think we've got, my focus initially was, let's start with football. It's what I know. And so I hired the head coach and the GM, and then from there we built out the business side. There's different ways of, going after this, but I really thought at the end of the day, it's about the players, the pitch, the fan experience. If we start there, all the other things over time. And that was something that Ron and I discussed philosophically is, do you want to outprice it or do you want to get people in the stands? And so we've grown this to now where I think it's, it's a financially solid model, but it's also something that I think people are looking to as, one of the flagships in our sport.
No, and you've had that success on the field as well. You're 2 seasons in, regular season champions, congratulations, and then obviously narrowly losing in the playoffs this year. But are you ahead of where you thought you'd be at this stage in the journey in terms of that playing success?
I think so. I hired a coach in Casey Stoney, and when I actually hired her, I said, what are you looking for in your club? And she said, I want a club that can match my ambition. And I love that because, there was this, for lack of a better word, this misnomer that you have to take time, you have to be an expansion club, you have to grow. I'm like, hell no, let's just go, let's go after it. And that was kind of the mentality of trying to sign the right players, hire definitely the right coach, and build it from there. So has it happened faster than I thought? Yes. Our goal was to certainly be in the playoffs. But to win the Shield this year was, I think, pretty extraordinary. And as I said to our coach, when you're building out a roster, year 1 you're building, year 2 you're building. I believe year 3 you become. Like that's when things start to fall into place. So I think we're ahead of schedule, but certainly I think we're pushing and chomping at the bit.
I think I know the answer to this question already, but in terms of the sense of buzz that you get from being a head coach to moving into the front office as president, is it the same level of satisfaction, or do you still pine to be out there sometimes directing the players?
No. I mean, it's very much, listen, when I hired Casey, I said, I'm not going to be on your shoulder. I wouldn't want that as a coach, and certainly it has to be hers to build, and I'm not there every day at training. There has to be a level of trust. Sure, do I sometimes sit up there, and it's actually harder to sit and watch than it's way more pressure sitting in the stands than it is down on the field, because obviously there's a certain lack of control. But what I would say is we've done this together, a lot of conversations. Is there the same buzz? Absolutely. Like when I walk through our stadium, we played in the semifinal, 32,500 people, because I think at my core, this sport it's just everything, and it brings people together. And when you suddenly have what's happening on the field, side by side with what's happening in the stands, and there's this excitement, there is incredible fulfillment in that feeling. So, I'm competitive, but I also recognize that at the end of the day, sports entertainment. And I used to say to my players after a really good game, I would have paid to watch you. Because at the end of the day, it is an opportunity to bring people together to rally around something. And I think we've done that in San Diego.
Can I ask you, we've heard a lot of sessions here over the last 2 days at SoccerX about the direction the travel the women's game is on, certainly in this country, but also globally. We're coming off the back of a summer tournament in Australia and New Zealand as well, which was phenomenally successful. In terms of where we are in the journey of women's soccer, we've got a $240 million domestic TV deal now. Can you just put into words where it is now? It seems to be on this incredible trajectory. What's your vision for how this is going to go? And I guess my follow-up to that is, where does San Diego fit into that program?
Well, maybe if I just take you back to my initial conversation with Ron. When I met with him, I said, why women's football? And he said, it's going to be $1 billion industry, and I'm getting on the ground floor. And again, not my world, but I was like, wow. And it made me realize that, yes, certainly I've always believed in the product, always believed in what we're doing. And now I think you're seeing this in our league, in women's professional sports. You're seeing others almost try and look behind the curtain now to what we've all known. Those of us that are in it have known it. But now all of a sudden you're seeing, not just from investors in terms of owners, but you're also seeing media rights go up. You're seeing more partnerships and sponsorships. You're seeing others. And my mantra has been, it's not a matter of should you invest, it's why would you not invest. So where are we in this cresting wave? I don't think we're anywhere near the top. I really believe and part of why I got into this is because I wanted to create opportunities for women. I mean, one of the things that's challenging for me is why women's sports isn't prime time. Why don't we give them the opportunity to be in these prime slots? Because I think if you do, you will recognize that there is an audience, there is an appetite, and there's a viewership. It's just now, it's still a little bit hard to find at times our sport, especially when you have an 85-year-old father who calls you every freaking day, is like, I can't find the game. But I think where we're headed now is that truly people are starting to see how special this is. You know, you see the fans at Nebraska, you see, and you know, when I was building San Diego, I said to my boss, I'm like, I want to build something that when people look at it on TV, they go, holy shit, I want to be there. That's where I want to be. That looks amazing, that looks fun. So I think how we project sports in media, especially women's sports, is really important. And suddenly if you see a full stadium or a full arena, it makes people realize, wow, people are getting into this, why shouldn't I? And that's where I think we need, truthfully, I think we need media to continue to take steps in those opportunities. But I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, it was my next question on that level of exposure that you're going to get from this new TV deal. How important is that, and that keeping that momentum going?
It is. I mean, you know, it's. We talked earlier about the World Cup. You know, I think the next World Cup, we have to continue to better ourselves. So, you know, the expectation is, yes, this is the media deal for now. Does that generate a better media deal? Like, that's what we have to continue to work towards. And just, you know, like the Women's World Cup in 2023 was an exceptional tournament, exceptionally well run, broke all these kind of records. Well, guess what? Now that's this lower standard. Now we have to push. And that's the attitude I think we have to take with sports.
In terms of those big set-piece tournaments, we've got an Olympics next summer, as you're saying, coming off the back of a Women's World Cup this summer. How important is it for the club game and the international game to collaborate and coordinate together to continue that growth story?
I think it's critical. I mean, obviously my world was international football, but I think these massive showcase, the world kind of rallies behind them, continues to give us a broader lens than we just have domestically. So I think it is critical that, you know, these the Olympics, the World Cups, the Euros, all of those events, I think, help grow our footprint. And you know, we know that with FIFA, people get on board with FIFA, and then by default, I mean, I love the fact that they held the TV rights in Europe and said, no, we're not going to sell them for X. I love that. I love the fact that we're now expecting more and demanding more. But I think the international events are just opportunities, not just for us to grow here, but you look at what that tournament does to a country like Jamaica, where suddenly these players become household names. You look at the debutantes, Thailand. It's growing us globally, and when we truly become, and I think we are the global game, but when we have heroes in other countries, that's when I know this sport's fully arrived.
The women's game has got so many brilliant characters there that we're getting to know, and fans are getting to know and continuing to grow that. We saw this year, with the Disney show, The Matildas, which had that inside look at them. How important is that element of taking the players as personalities and using those as the drivers to get people involved in the game? Is that something that, obviously you're putting on great showcases in stadiums and great product on the field, but how important is that other element in terms of introducing the storylines and the characters that are driving this growth?
Well, I think it's critical, and in truth, you know, as a coach, I'm like, keep the cameras far away. I don't care. Now I recognize the power of that, and you know, we are in a time where, you know, access and information, it's all right there. We want to know the why. We want to be in the locker room. We want to understand these things. So I do think that is part of growing the fan base. I mean, you look at the phenomenon that's Wrexham. You look at some of these behind-the-scenes shows. If it helps grow and promote, I think. The beauty of the U.S. is we had the success of the national team, and so we had these icons in sport that help grow the attention. At the end of the day, sports does need superstars. We've had that benefit, but now we need those heroes in the NWSL. We need our fans to know more than just the players on the national team, but the players in their market. So those types of medium to expose fans to you know, what a player does on a day-to-day, the journey a player's going through. I mean, we've signed a 15-year-old. She's amazing. Gosh, you know, and we've been very protective of her, but she gets the loudest cheers. People want to know, and I think that's a very cool story to tell. So I think it's critical. These storytelling moments are critical.
Jill, in the last few moments, I want to ask you a little bit about the U.S. women's national team and Emma Hayes, but very quickly, it's off-season now for you. I guess the work doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Take us inside the life of a president and what your aims and objectives are between now and the start of the new season.
Well, right now I'm knee-deep in budgets. Julie can relate to that. So right now it's all about, setting our budget for next year, meeting one-on-one meetings with all of our groups. I think we've been looking at how we grow, so it's looking at staffing. I mean, right now everything is focused on the business side, but on the adjunct to that, we've also got an expansion draft coming up. We're trying to sign players, so there really isn't an off season per se. But what we're trying to do is certainly try and bring more talent to San Diego, both on and off the pitch. Set our sights in terms of, Ron. What I love about Ron is he's very hands-off, but there if I need him. Like he always said to me, if it looks like you're going over a cliff or into a brick wall, I got you. But he's very hands-off and really trusts the people that he's hired to do the job. So it's trying to make sure that, he gets all the information he needs to see that this is progressing. But yeah, there's no off season. I mean, it's kind of like coaching. You never put it down.
You're always
it's
on.
24/7, yeah.
Just on the women's national team from the US. So US Soccer announcing yesterday that Emma Hayes is going to be the new head coach starting next summer when she finishes up with Chelsea. What are your thoughts on that appointment? What will Emma, Emma, I know very well, what will she bring to the role and how excited should fans be about her arrival?
Well, they should be very excited. It's a phenomenal hire. Emma, I could sit and listen to Emma. Emma and I have crossed paths over the years, but just tremendous amount of respect. This is a woman, she's a pioneer. She knows the stuff on the pitch, but also is someone that I think has really been a leader in our space. So I'm just excited that we've got someone of her caliber and quality that not only will take care of the business on the pitch, but also I think will be a driver in female soccer, female football in our country, and I think that's a really exciting hire, and I'm delighted.
And what were your thoughts on what happened over the summer? Disappointing tournament for the US team, but how can they use that as fuel, and what is that next step for them, do you think?
I mean, I think it is important to know, right? Like, it was 16 years between 99 and 15, so people tend to lose sight of the fact that it's not always a given, it's not a guarantee. But it's, I think, an alert to we've got to continue to commit and grow and develop. And listen, we have, and any international person will tell you in football, women's football will tell you, we have phenomenal talent in this country. Now I think we've got to bridge that gap between the 16, 18-year-old and what do we do in that space where these young players are challenged day in and day out in terms of their training environment. I think with the U.S. team, I mean, I think what's hard, and I say this, from a coaching perspective, it's hard, I think, when the players go into a pressure cooker moment like that, they lean on, they've got to have confidence in what they know and the person to the left of them, the right of them, in front of them, behind them. And I think when you mix up lineups, it may seem in your head kind of what you're doing, but I actually think that consistency of lineup is part of going into a tournament prepared. And I think when you go into a tournament, and I say this is, Vlatko's a friend, he's an exceptional coach, but when you go into a tournament and you're not sure of your lineup on the first day, or you've never put those people together, I think as talented as these players are, there's something to be said in consistency and confidence in that pressure cooker moment.
Yeah. It's going to be a busy few years for soccer, for the soccer landscape in this country. You've got Club World Cup for the men's game coming in 2025. We've got World Cup, obviously, across Canada, USA,
27.
Mexico in 26. We've got 27.
27, we hope, right? Let's go.
And that's that landscape there. So this, is it a rising, men's game, women's game, is it a rising tide floats all boats? Is that the attitude here about the growth of the game across this country?
Well, I think if we see it as, listen, I mean, when I asked Ron, I said, why women's football? And he says, because we got some of the best players in the world, and we're the best in the world. And there's this idea that, we are very, very special on the women's side. But yes, I think ultimately the appetite for soccer in this country is continuing to elevate and grow. I think that helps everybody. I think it's a massive statement that Emma Hayes is paid the same as our men's coach. Yes, about time, but that's exceptional. But I also, and we've got a MLS team coming to San Diego, and people are like, oh, you're worried. I'm like, no, at the end of the day, this just cements the fact that this is a soccer community that enjoy the sport, and people are going to show up, And it then becomes more about the quality, less about the gender, right? Like I think it's, people want to get behind winning teams. They want to see amazing players. They want to see talent. I think it's going to be more about that than it is about I want to see a men's game or a women's game. I want to see the best players in the world compete in my neighborhood.
And that's the element of choice, exactly.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's sadly all we have time for. We could talk more.
It was like a speed round. It's like speed dating. It's awesome.
Exactly. Please join me in thanking Jill for her time and fascinating insight. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Richard.